And speaking of Randall Ballmer's book, like you're referencing Bad Faith, where in the beginning of the book it opens right with this
Mm,
scene where he's in this sort of behind the scenes meeting, and they explicitly said, "But this is exactly the religious, the moral majority, these different organizations or whatever the movement, also the specific organizations within it, that exactly like they're in explicitly state." Out loud, the thing you're not supposed to say out loud,
yeah.
exactly, it was segregation. It was the integration of schools that really catalyzed this movement, and it wasn't abortion. Because you can look at Stewart's work or Kristen Dumais' work, where they talk about how in this earlier 70s and especially in the 60s, a lot of these organizations like Christianity Today and other evangelical organizations were pro-abortion, and
Yeah.
then we hit a certain point, and then all of a sudden it's the rallying cry, and then we're made to believe in a very ahistorical way that that's what started things. No, it wasn't. Again, the other conversations predated these things, and like you said, Jerry Falwell was a raging racist and segregationist, though he has this come to Jesus moment, and apparently all is well and God's on his throne afterwards. But I think it's just wild how ahistorical these folks are, and I think typically what's so ironic about it is how they oftentimes try to use history, again, their construction of history, and not just interpretation, but like construction, because it's like completely that. It's like a construction, it's a fabrication of a bunch of different, things. Whether if we don't think about homosexuality, it's always that, this is the way it's been forever. And we've always been against this. And then if you look at the historical sort of like development of homophobia within the church, we think back to 1946, which is when homosexuality first enters the Bible, right? Like that language was not used for any translation up until 1946. And again, there's a history there. There's obviously a lot to talk about there, and there's a documentary about it now. But all this to say is that they make it seem like this has always been the case. And it's not. Again, like not to say that Christians have been like super open and cool for like queers all throughout all time in history. They haven't.
Not
But
so
it
much.
wasn't the way that it's been